With us today is Luzia Leme Tartari. A native of Brazil, Luzia is currently Admissions and Enrollment Field Consultant for the Office of Catholic Schools in the Diocese of Grand Rapids, Michigan. She joins us to talk about her personal journey and how an international transplant can be the face of welcome for newcomers in our midst. Luzia, welcome to Feel Like You Belong.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you are originally from southern Brazil?
Yes, southeast Brazil, São Paulo. Yes, São Paulo State. It's a smaller town called Bragança Paulista.
Yeah, just an hour outside of the biggest city in the country.
Right.
Yeah.
Just 1 hour north. Yeah, a lot of mountains, a lot of hills, beautiful vegetation.
It's a beautiful country. If people ask me recommendations for travel, I say, go to Brazil.
Yes.
People are lovely. The land is lovely. It's not expensive.
Yes, it's true. It's not.
Yeah, so wonderful. Anyway, you were born in Brazil, and after high school, you did 1-year exchange.
Right, I did.
In Big Rapids, Michigan.
Yes.
So whose idea was this, yours or your parents?
I've always wanted it. I started studying English when I was in middle school, like 10 years old or 11 years old. And my goal was to come here because through my school, there were a lot of students doing exchange programs. And I loved the idea, and I always told my parents, I want to do that. I want to do that. I just waited until I finished my high school so I could do 1 semester without worrying about, going straight into college, into university. So I decided to take that break and come here and did.
Did you have a choice of what state you went to, or was it just dependent on the exchange program?
It was the exchange program. Okay. We never knew where we were going to be.
Okay.
And actually, we didn't know at all for a long time. Just a few days before, I knew I was going to be in Michigan.
Okay.
And then we came to Michigan and landed in Detroit, and the family was a total surprise. They were waiting for me, but we didn't know who they were.
So they had a picture of you, but not
right.
Vice versa.
Exactly.
What were your first impressions way back then when you were just a young person, late teens?
Well, the first impression was it was January. So
oh my goodness.
It was January 9th. And I walked out and I had to touch the snow. It was tons of snows in Detroit.
Okay.
We flew directly from São Paulo to Detroit.
Okay.
And that was amazing. So I said, oh my God, how cold can it be? And
below freezing.
Right. And we were so unprepared for the type of cold. And even though we take sweaters, because I knew I was coming to Michigan, so we took sweaters and stuff, but it was it was a shock.
To wear all the sweaters at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
And then feel hot at school all day because you would overdress for the indoors,
Sure,
right?
sure,
So
sure.
this is a mistake a lot of people make, thinking that you can, wear heavy sweaters all day long, and you can't.
So when you're giving advice to Brazilians, you can give it firsthand about how to dress in the northern regions of the U.S.
And not only Brazilians, everybody, all the international students and people that I worked with, I said, don't invest on heavy sweaters.
Yeah. What is your fondest memory of your time in Michigan as a student?
I had so many, but my family was extremely friendly and very welcoming. So yeah, we did a lot of things together, but I think one of my best memories was our senior trip to Washington, D.C., so with my colleagues, my senior colleagues, and it was wonderful. I had a wonderful time, and we had a nice group, a big group, so we were 2 buses that went from Morley-Stanwood High School to D.C., so wonderful. It was a wonderful.
If you had to recommend foreign exchange to Americans who are watching, would you say go ahead?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I think this opens your world so much. I always say that language is for me because that's something that I'm passionate about. I think it opens, it like multiply your world. So if you learn one language, it duplicates your world. So this opportunity to go and have that second culture, learn about a second culture, it's like duplicating the world and the things that you know. You watch a movie with a different perspective after you've been to the place or some place similar to the one that you are watching on TV.
Absolutely.
So I think that it brings so much. I would recommend to everybody.
Wonderful. Now, when you left Michigan, went back to Brazil, you enrolled in college and you studied interpretation, translation.
Yes, I did.
And what made, so you, obviously you speak Portuguese natively, what made you decide to do German?
Well, you know, I wanted a challenge. German was a challenge. I felt that my English, yes, exactly. And I felt that English I had picked up enough of through all the years of study and here, and I knew that I could keep practicing my English by working with English, and so German was really a challenge. I always faced it as something that I loved, and I loved the culture. And I think the first time that I set foot in Europe, that was in Germany, through a program from Goethe Institute to learn the language for teachers. It was a program for teachers because I was teaching it after college. And I said, this is a place I want to be, I should be here. So I think that opportunity that learning German brought to me to get to know European history or German history more, I felt it was amazing. And that opened my mind to other languages that I learned later.
So from a relatively young age, you had been in South America, North America, and then in Europe.
And in
so
Europe,
it gave you some great experience. And so this is over a course of 2 decades plus. You were working at the Binational Center and teaching English and German, and you also owned a travel agency for several years.
I did.
Yeah, I want to go back. So this is the context of your work life, but in the 1980s you had 2 daughters.
Right. I had 2 daughters, one in 1983, one in 1986.
And
so
their
3
names
years
are, because
apart.
they may be watching this interview.
Their names are Natalia and Leticia.
Okay.
So yes, they are beautiful daughters, and now they all have their families and their children. So I have 3 grandchildren right now, 2 granddaughters, and 1 grandson.
Sure. So. And then in this period, there's a moment of sadness because you lost your husband in 1999. The year after, you decided that you and your daughters would move to Big Rapids, where they would go to high school, and then you studied at Ferris State University. What was the motivation for coming back to Michigan all this time later?
I wanted my daughters to have a similar experience that I did, but I didn't want to split the family.
Sure.
We wanted to be together.
Because exchange will do that.
And the exchange would do that. I would have to, the older daughter would come first for 1 year and then be separate from us. And then the younger daughter would come. So we were at a time that we needed each other a lot. So I decided that, okay, let's all go and everybody will have that 1 year experience. You are going to go for 1 year of high school, 1 a senior, 1 a freshman, and I'm going to take 1 year of English education at Ferris, and then can I come back with something more, some more experience? And ended up that was offered a position at Ferris, and ended up staying. We made a joint decision. It was not I decided to stay. Our family has always been very close here because there are only us here.
Sure.
So
3 Musketeers.
3 Musketeers, right? And then we decided that we would like to try and stay here.
And what felt right about, for the 3 of you being in West Michigan?
I think that everything, Michigan, in some ways reminded us of the way they were raised and where we lived, because we lived in a farm in Brazil. So I felt that living in Big Rapids and being in the countryside and going to Morley Standard. So this, and being in Michigan with all the green, that brought us a lot of the things that we enjoyed in their, you know, while they were growing up in their childhood and in my childhood, because this farm belonged to my father, so I was raised going to that farm, and so they were raised there. So we were outside of the city, outside of a big city, and the safety of living here.
Sure.
For a woman with 2 teenage daughters on their own, it was a very safe place, safer than it would be for me to move at any other area in Brazil.
Fantastic.
So I felt that beautiful landscapes, beautiful opportunities, and a lot of friends, because my host family were very welcoming and helped me a lot.
What a delight for them to reconnect with you
Right,
all these
yes.
years later. And
Yes, I think it was a joy for both sides.
and
for
that
them
often
to
is
have
the
us.
experience of exchange families, both the host family and the host
Yeah,
student. You know,
yes,
keep
we
those
loved
connections
it.
for for a long time afterwards. So fast forwarding, you've had several jobs that you worked at after your 1 year of study at Ferris State, but you now work for the Diocese of Grand Rapids. Tell us about your job right now.
Well, I do. I support the schools from the diocese. We have 31 Catholic schools in the diocese, but the diocese is a big area. It goes from Holland all the way to Ludington, and on the west side to Ionia and Portland.
Wow.
And to the lake shore, of course.
Sure.
So it is a large area. So we have 31 schools, some within the city, some rural schools, small schools. And the superintendent had this idea that we needed to give more professional support for the schools that are small and cannot, look into hiring an admissions professional. So we support them in their admissions and enrollment process through the office here in Grand Rapids at the diocese. And that's what I do. So we visit the schools and we advocate for families, so within the schools. So what that means is families will call, I'm moving to Michigan, I would like a school. So we take them around, we take them to tour several different schools, and they need financial aid. I'm in charge of the scholarships, so we provide them whatever assistance we can through the diocese, or help them connect with the schools for the type of aid. So we really help families enroll.
What's your most rewarding aspect of this job?
Exactly that. When you get a family that sometimes have financial difficulties or other sort of difficulties, but through our work, we manage to get them enrolled and things work out. If we need to get donors to provide for their tuition assistance, we work with the schools and try to do that. And those are very fulfilling experiences, because we feel that we are really helping people. I think that it's a type of service. It's a very good education, because it educates academically, but educates the spiritual side too.
Sure.
It's mind
you
and
went
body.
to Catholic school in Brazil, so you understand
did.
that from a personal perspective. Our
Yes.
time is running short, but I have one final question for you. You have this welcoming spirit in your job, and part of what you do in often welcoming, as you said, newcomers to the area, but in your church, you have gone the extra step, because your church is supporting welcoming newcomers from outside the country, specifically supporting refugees. Can you talk a little bit about that work in the last minute that we have?
Well, yes, our churches, not all of them are prepared for the amount of need that we are seeing. So we are getting refugees or asylum seekers that are Catholic, and Catholic churches all over the world. So they come and look for the church for help. So it's not something that many churches are prepared to do. So they count on the parishioners, on us, who are part of the church, to support these families.
And it takes some special training and organization to do it, because it's very labor intensive.
Yes, and because of I know foreign languages, so sometimes they connected them to me, and I am able to help them maneuver all the bureaucracy and sometimes take them to organizations. It's very hard, very difficult work, and not all of them can be totally helped as we would have liked, but we always give them support and try to make them feel that they belong here, to our church, to our city. And I think that has been very rewarding work for me and for the church, and they are learning. We are all learning how to help these families. Everything that we succeed in doing, it's something new that we learn, that we can use it to help the next one.
Where are the refugees from currently?
The refugees that we helped come through Bethany, and the ones that
Bethany Christian Services?
Bethany Christian Service refers the Catholic to us.
I understand. Okay.
Right? What has been happening also is these asylum seekers that do not come from Bethany, and they are mostly from Africa, and the ones that I've been helping closely are from Congo, and French speakers.
Who also then happily speak French, which you also speak.
Right.
Yeah.
So they are French speakers. So just this morning I helped a young man and a young woman enroll at one of our high schools that gladly opened their doors to them for nothing, and really welcomed them, and it was a wonderful opportunity to help them finally starting going to school in the U.S. And so small steps that we managed to arrange for them, make it worth it. Sure. Make it all your work worth it.
And in this time of really global refugee crisis, with over close to 70 million people homeless because of war, because of political persecution and other kinds of persecution, we need to be showing compassion and saying, okay, there is refuge, there is a space for you here, come and come and be safe. And so, thank you for that, that compassion. I think people like you cannot help but be, if that's your heart, that's what you do. But thanks for that, and thanks for coming by and talking with us today.
Thank you very much
been a real
for
delight.
inviting. I really enjoyed too, and anytime that you want, I'll be here.
Awesome.
And now trying to help everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. If you're watching us on TV, stay tuned for our following segments on language and culture. If you're watching Feel Like You Belong on the internet, we hope you will share your feedback with us via our website and YouTube channel. And be sure to catch our many other stories about the compassionate immigrants making our communities more welcoming spaces.